some North American Indian people don't know even all of the tribes in North America. So let alone some random tribe from an island in the Caribbean. And that's okay. I mean, that's human nature. Everybody doesn't know everything. So it's a matter of finding a certain amount of, dealing with compassion. I was telling Ken, the story, we interpret the story of Deminan Caracaracol, the guy who a turtle sprouted from his back. You've heard that story, right?
No.
Oh, well, anyway, I'll tell you the story later. But anyway, the way we interpret that story, we believe that that turtle that sprouted from his back was his sense of compassion, which he had repressed for many, many years. He didn't allow it to come out and express itself. And his experience with the shaman, with the Bohitiu Bayamanaco, freed it, and it came bouncing out painfully. It was born out of his back. And this turtle was actually the spirit of compassion. It was a female turtle. We associate compassion with femaleness. And that healed him. We also believe in the Caney indigenous spiritual circle, our interpretation of the story. This is one of the stories that Ramon Pane wrote down. We believe that the fact that he was part of a group of 4 brothers, all born on the same day from the same mother, and that their birth killed her. We believe that, in fact, it was all one person with multiple personality disorder, okay? They were all one person, and that's the reason we only get one name. When they tell that story, they say only the first one that came out, we know his name. His name was Deminan Caracaracol. We don't know the name of the other 3. Well, that's because there weren't any other 3. It was all one person. And at the end, when the turtle comes out of his back and turns into a beautiful woman, he is healed by her. And his personalities connect. And he becomes one healed human being because of compassion. Then they get married and have the Taíno people. That's the story as it. So we see compassion as a primal force in the healing process. We have to try to see past our triggers with our fellow Taínos and use compassion and patience to move forward. Did I even answer your question? No, I don't even remember. I don't remember your question anymore.
Well, the question was in my head.
Well, I guess I have a question. I kind of remember it right now. What would I think Paige kind of brushed on it. Like, what would an ideal future kind of look like? You were kind of pressing on that, but I guess like what would like your utopia for Taínos? What would that? What would
Well, a united people, a people with a common goal. Certainly, diversity is possible. There's nothing wrong with diversity, but free of the vitriol that exists today as a result of that diversity, as a result of those differences of opinion. My utopia is a Taíno, a global Taíno community, because we're everywhere, you know? A global Taíno community that can work together to move forward, even in spite of the fact that we have sometimes very distinct, different opinions about even what we believe, our spiritual beliefs. But we can move forward as a united people and make sense of the world, and then unite with non-Taínos, with other indigenous people, with non-indigenous people. So what's happening in the UN, we have people in the UN that are working with other indigenous people from around the world, and Taínos are accepted in those communities as native people. And so we're working together with other indigenous people to move forward the interests of indigenous people around the world. Are those efforts always successful? No. Sometimes we almost feel like, one step forward, 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. But we like to think that we're making progress. Progress may seem slow and it may make us impatient. But that's the utopia, unity.
Similar to, I guess, how the original Taíno tribes were on the islands. Like,
Yeah.
they all, for the most part, we don't have any, if I'm not mistaken, any history of war in between those cultures, or at least like to the extreme of genocidal war. It was never, no one was trying to outlast or outbeat each other, just kind of like.
That we know of.
Yeah, that we know.
That we know of, there wasn't that kind of relationship. Was there that kind of relationship with other indigenous tribes? Actually, yes. There were indigenous groups that were very, that the states of war did exist, and they became very militaristic. But Taínos don't seem to be one of those groups, even though they had a warrior tradition, but it wasn't the kind of thing that you find in some of these other places. So they had to defend themselves. There were people from the Lesser Antilles that would raid Taíno communities sometimes, and they had to defend themselves against those raids. But it didn't make them like really, belligerent towards each other.
Well, I guess one last thing. I also like what you had said about, you don't need the card to say you're Taíno. I think that's a thing definitely been adopted by the states. Also because the states do have us in a grasp to a certain degree when it comes to the island and the land, and then therefore what's written in to be considered a official national federal tribe would be to be associated with land, is what you had said, right? So I think that utopia tag along to it goes along with that as well, getting away from this idea of, we're so super connected right now, like the world can be our oyster, and so can this diversity. And that's the thought you inspired me right now.
That's right on.
Could you tell me a little bit about so-and-so who you're wearing on your head?
That's my cricket. That's the way I identify him.
Did you make it?
Yeah, oh yeah, I made this headdress. So I make a lot of my stuff. Not this wonderful thing was made for me.
Yeah, could you tell me about it?
Well, I have a fellow Behike, Nelson Sayas, and he and his wife are excellent weavers, and they make all kinds of wonderful stuff. So I requested from Lisa to make me, because I've seen their bags, and I said, well, can you make me a white bag with black trimming, because I wear a lot of white. And I want this image, and I sent them the image. This image is actually a replica of a pictograph, not a petroglyph, a pictograph in Cuba, in a wall, or the wall of a cave, where they represent the sun, the face of the sun. So I said, I want you to make that on a bag, and she did. So there it is.
Love it.